We're holding by Perek Gimel, which is on page Ayin Ches, opposite of page 154, Perek Gimel of Hayichud Vehaemunah. And today we are going to get to the essence of Hayichud Vehaemunah. You can argue everything that we were talking about up until this point is leading us to the ideas that we're going to be talking about today, and the rest of Hayichud Vehaemunah will be elaboration on the ideas we're going to talk about today. And various explanations. And in Perek Aleph, Alter Rebbe laid down the foundation once again, which is that creation is ongoing. That the energy, the koyach and the chayis, which Hashem put into creation, that's something which is continuous. Because if for one moment, chas v'shalom, this world would, the asarim amaris, which constitute the energy of this world, if they would depart this world, then the world would cease to exist. And the words of Alter Rebbe would be, K'moy koydem sheishes me'bereishis, it would be mamish like it was before the 6 days of creation. That was the Nekuda of Perek Aleph. Perek based Alter Rebbe then turns and he addresses the people who deny Hashgacha Pratis, they deny the miracles of the Torah, and Alter Rebbe explains this is because they're misunderstanding the dynamic of creation, and they're missing this point of Perek Aleph, and they're comparing the handiwork of Hashem to lahavdil, the handiwork of a human being. That a human being once he creates something, and we're using the word creation loosely. That's not mamish, but once the human being fashions or forms something, so that thing usually no longer requires the care, the attention, and the creative power of its creator. So they say the same thing. Hashem, he created the world, and now the world exists on its own. But they're misunderstanding the idea of yesh mi ayin. They're comparing yesh mi ayin to yesh mi yesh. And in the case of yesh mi ayin, because there's a real chiddush that's happening over here, that chiddush, in order for it to continue, requires a creative power which is constantly perpetuating that chiddush. That's what we learned about in Perek Beis. Now we're holding back Perek Gimel. And now the Alter Rebbe is going to move. We're going to say, now we can draw a certain conclusion, which is based on the fact that the world is being recreated at every moment, or the sustaining power, as we say, Hamachadesh b'tuvei b'chol yom tamid maseh bereishis, that the world is constantly being forced into existence by Hashem. It's being spoken into existence. And if Hashem were to stop that for one moment, the world would cease to exist. So based on that, we can reach a conclusion, we can arrive at understanding regarding the state of the world right now also, which is that the world doesn't really exist.
It's an illusion, you said.
Let's see. Let's do one side. Perek Gimel. After these words and the truths that we discussed up until this point, Kol maskil al davar, anyone who's intelligent in this area, Yavin Lashuri, will be able to understand very well Eich shekol nivra v'yesh, how it is that every single creation and everything that is, hu be'emes nechshav la'ayin ve'efes mamish, is really considered to be absolutely nothing. Ligabi koyach hapoyel, relative to, or in regard to, the koyach, which is the koyach of Hashem, which is constantly bringing us into creation, veruach piv, and the asarim amaris, the words from Hashem's mouth, shebenifal, which is this koyach, and these words of Hashem, they constantly exist within the creation, within that which is created. Hamahavo isei tamid, which creates it constantly, umetziyah ima'ayin mamish, and at every moment is taking it out of a state of absolute nothingness, liyesh, to something. There are many examples that can illustrate this point. The classic example is if a stone, I think we might have talked about this before, a stone or a rock. Imagine you're sitting here in this room and it's daylight and you look out the window and you see suddenly there's a rock flying by the window. So if you have any intelligence, your reaction isn't, wow, take a look at that. A rock that flies. I didn't know such a thing exists. I've never seen something of that sort. No, you don't say there's a flying rock. Rather, what do you say? You say, who's that idiot who's throwing rocks? Because rocks don't fly. So if a rock is flying, it's not a flying rock. It's a rock, which is no different than every other rock which is on the ground, which is being flown by an outside power. It isn't flying. If we take the same analogy and we apply this to all of existence, if existence doesn't really exist, it's being forced into existence at every moment by the Asar Mamaris, by Hashem's words. So can we truly look at this table and say it exists? That's like saying this rock flies. This table has no existence of its own. It's being existed. No such word exists in the English language, because the concept doesn't exist in the English language. The concept of something which is being made to exist, it doesn't exist on its own. It doesn't have existence. Well, let's say another example is simple. Stand in front of a mirror. Stand in front of a mirror, you look in the mirror, your face is there. Is your face really there?
No.
No. It's also not an illusion. In other words, I wouldn't use the word it's an illusion, just like it's not an illusion that the rock is flying. The rock is right now in the air, and your image right now is also in the mirror. It's not an illusion. But is it there?
No.
And when you walk away, it's not there anymore. Why isn't it there? Because it never was there. It never really was there. The same thing is with creation. Or another example is a projector. So imagine you have a wall, and then you have a projector projecting different pictures on there. So there's a picture on the wall right now. Is that picture really there? No. You can have a piece of art hanging on the wall. If there's a piece of art hanging on the wall, there's a picture there. But what if you project it? In other words, all you have is a projector, the picture isn't there. When you take away the projector, so what happened? Did you remove the picture?
No.
The picture wasn't there. All you had there was the power of the projector. The moment the power of the projector is gone,
yep.
So the image is gone, because the image wasn't there. The image wasn't there. All you had was the projection. If we look at ourselves and realize that all we are is a projection of Hashem's Koyach HaPoil, a projection of the Asar Mamaris, then we realize that we taki don't exist. And what is the only thing that exists?
Hashem.
Is Hashem. So Einoid Mulvadei. This is the crux, this is the point of Shaar Hayichud Vehaemunah, this idea. We started. V'yadata hayoyim v'asheveis al v'avecha. You should know. Ki Hashem hu elikim b'shamayim yimal v'l'aretz mitachas. Hashem is Hashem. He and ein oid mulvadei. There's nothing other than Him. What does it mean ein oid mulvadei? What about everything that Hashem created? How do you say ein oid mulvadei? But based on what we've learned in the last two parakim, we understand ein oid mulvadei. Just like you wouldn't say there's the projector and there's also the picture on the wall. Yes, there's the projector. Oh, and by the way, the projector is creating a picture on the wall. No, there is no picture on the wall. There isn't.
But you see something.
You see, and it's not an illusion, but at the end of the day, what are you seeing is the power of the projector. It's not that there's the projector, and besides for that, there's a beautiful, the projector created a picture on the wall. A picture which exists on, no, there is no picture that exists on the wall. All there is the power of the projector. It's not that the stone has the power to fly. It's not a flying stone. The stone is not a flying stone. And when it falls to the ground, it's not any different than any other stones around it. It had within it the power of the person who was throwing it for a temporary amount of time. This world is only a projection of the power of Hashem, the Koyach HaPoil.
So all this going to teach us humility. And once we understand these concepts, well, that's the theme we're trying to get to.
No.
No.
No. We are so beyond humility. We are right now into nothingness, and you're talking about humility. Okay, humility means that I am small and you are big, and therefore I'm humble before you. So humility is I exist. But I'm a small existence. You exist, you're a bigger existence. And therefore, when I stand in front of you, I'm humble. And that's one way of understanding our relationship with Hashem, which is that there is me, and I recognize just how much greater Hashem is than me, and therefore I'm humble, or even in the words of Chassidus, you can say I'm batal to Hashem. Just like when, right, or the Gemara says, Shrage betir ramayhanele, right? You take a candle and stick it up in the sunlight in the middle of the afternoon, stick up the candle, and you look, candle is batal. But does the candle exist? Yeah, it's just that it's so irrelevant, it's so small in comparison to the sun. That's humility. Here we're talking about something which is much deeper and much higher. We're talking about nothingness. Ein oid milvadi, there's nothing about Hashem. Not that there's something which is humble, there's nothing.
So how do you have free will? How nothing could have free will and all these beautiful virtues that man has?
That's a very good question. Hold on to it.
I'm nothing. I should be like an inert gas. Even that's something.
It doesn't go so fast. When you say you're nothing, it doesn't go so fast as he said.
That's a great question. And we're going to address it on many levels, that question. You have to have patience. If you remember, when we learned Perek Aleph, so we said over there that Alter Rebbe, he says, and he says it twice, that if the words of the Asar Mamaros were to leave this world, Kiraga, even for a moment, Chas v'Shalom, then this world would revert to nothingness, like before the world was created. And if you remember, what we said then was, I said I'm going to tell you something, but we're not going to fully understand it until later. And that is that if the Asar Mamaros were to leave the world, it's not pshat that the world ceases to exist from here on, but the world never existed. It's like before the world was created. Remember we spoke about that?
Yeah.
If the Asar Mamaros were to leave creation right now, then it's not pshat there was a world that ceased to exist, but we revert back to the state before the creation of the world when there never was a world. The world never existed. At that point, we didn't, though, have enough information to be able to make sense out of what does that mean. What does it mean the world never existed? But I think by now we can have a better understanding of that. If I were to create something, and then if somehow or other, let's say, I was able to somehow destroy it completely, not only to change its form, destroy it.
Like this week Pasha.
So right now, sorry?
Like this week Pasha, Noach Mabel.
Okay, I love Nafka because there's a rule in general, it's a scientific rule, that nothing which is yesh becomes ayin. It changes form, it can disintegrate, it can become water, it can become air, but make it disappear. Right.
Yeah.
So, but imagine we can make something disappear.
Different state of Gashmi.
So at this moment, it doesn't exist. But can we say that it didn't exist? Yes, it existed. It existed at a certain point in time.
So that was to put the clock backward.
It's not about, well, hold on with your thoughts about pushing the clock backward. But when you turn off the projector, if there's a wall and I have a projector and there's a picture over there, I turned it off. Do we say that there was a picture there and now the picture disappeared, or there never really was a picture in the first place? So therefore we're reverting back to the state which we were beforehand. It's not pshat that there was a real change, and then first there wasn't a picture, then there was a picture, now there never was a picture.
From the very fact that you turn it off and it takes that away shows that it was never there.
Yeah, it doesn't even say the words "it takes it away" implies that it's there to be taken away. As soon as it stops projecting, there's nothing. Right?
That's the proof.
So that's why, considering that be'emes even now einoid milvadei, therefore, if the Asar Mamaros were to go away, then it's not pshat only that from here on there was no world. There never was anything. There was just Hashem. Always was just Hashem. The Rebbe takes us a step further in a fascinating way. And the Rebbe says, let's say I create something, and then I destroy it. Theoretically, I destroy it. So then this thing existed in the past. So I say yesterday it existed. That's because we operate under the framework of time. So therefore yesterday it wasn't and today it was. But what if time itself is a creation? So then the moment the world exists, time also ceases to exist. If that's our mamaris are taken away, there is no time. If there is no time, can we say yesterday there was a world?
There's no history, no record.
So therefore automatically we revert back to the way it was before Sheish Me'Bereshis. There never was a world, because there is no world right now. And can we say there was a world? The word was doesn't exist. So that's another explanation to what the Alter Rebbe means, that if the Asar HaMash would go away, there never was a world, because the concept of was can't exist. Because was is a product of the progression of time. If there's no progression of time, then there never was a world. But again, that's more of a vertel. The main nekuda we're saying is, if the world never existed really in the first place, if all there was Hashem, the moment Asar HaMamaros came, there never was anything. And this is the nekuda of Achdus Hashem according to Chassidus. When we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, what does it mean? It doesn't mean there's one God and there's no other God. It also doesn't mean that which the Rambam, doesn't only mean. Obviously, what the Rambam says is correct. It's deeper and it's beyond that which the Rambam says, that Hashem Echad, the idea of Achdus Hashem, means that there is no power other than Hashem, which is the which is the classic understanding of Achdus Hashem, is that the only one who controls everything is Hashem, and everything else is Kegarzen Biyad HaChoytzav, is only like an axe in the hands of the wood chopper, which that's Taka understanding of Achdus Hashem. There's only one authority, power in this entire, in all of creation and in everything. But Chassidus obviously is taking this much deeper. Ein Oid Milvadei means literally Ein Oid Milvadei. There's nothing but Hashem. Everything else is everything that exists is merely a projection of Hashem.
So why the Chumash uses the word bara, Elokim, whole bunch of the concept ratios use God created this, how do you define creation, the word bara, if everything's Zelakus? Is everything just a projection? It means everything that you see here is God.
So you remind me of a story which is said about a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek, that he lent some money to another chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek. To chassidim, he lent him some money, and the time came for the debt to be collected. So he went to the chassid and said, "Where's my money?" He says, "I'm not paying you." He says, "What do you mean you're not paying me? Why are you denying that you borrowed money from me?" He says, "No, not denying anything." So why aren't you paying me? He says, "Because Ein Oid Milvadei, you don't exist and I don't exist, and the money doesn't exist and the debt doesn't exist. Nothing exists.
I don't think that
You're such a misnagid that you're demanding the money from me. Why would you demand? You don't believe in what it says. That Ein Oid Milvadei. You never learned some chassidus in your life. He was playing the.
That's a good.
And he was serious. He was serious.
He wasn't serious when he took it. He wasn't so serious.
So the lender, next time he was in Lubavitch, he went and he told the Rebbe about this. This is what I'm supposed to do. The Tzemach Tzedek. So the Rebbe said, "Let's see what happens next time he comes." So the next time he came to Lubavitch, the Tzemach Tzedek came into the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek said, "You owe money," and he told the Tzemach Tzedek the exact same thing. This is my story, and I'm sticking to it. No, I did borrow it. But the whole concept of me paying back, you don't exist, I don't exist, money doesn't exist, nothing exists. Ein Oid Milvadei. So the Tzemach Tzedek said, "Okay, you're saying that everything is nothing, no problem. So we'll take this nothing," and he pointed at the person, "and we'll lay this nothing over this nothing," and he pointed to the table. And then we'll take this nothing, he pointed to the belt, and we'll hit the nothing with the nothing, and we'll see if Taka everything is nothing. Bereshis bara Elokim es Hashemayim v'aretz means Hashem created the world. And by the way, this is a whole different sugi in Chassidus. The Rebbe Rashab talks about this extensively, especially in his early Mamarim. And if Taka nothing exists, then we don't exist, and then Torah doesn't exist, and mitzvahs don't exist, and it's not important what I do and when I do, and that's not the case. It's not the case. And we bring a raya. Chassidus brings a raya from halacha to this, which is that if you go and the Gemara, the Mishnah says that if you cut a cucumber on Shabbos, you're chayiv misa. But what if your oich is a seinayim? What if you're able to do it by sleight of hand, or you're a magician, but you didn't really do it, but it looks like you did it. There's a whole field. The Gemara says that there were Tanoim who knew how to do this. Tanoim, Amiroim, were able to harvest the whole field. I'm not sure if it means by magic or by sleight of hand, but the bottom line, it didn't really happen. But it appears to happen. So the Mishnah says, Hayichud is potter. is not chayiv. But if the whole world is one big illusion, then what does it make a difference? If everything is only just about appearances, then what does it make a difference if you really cut it or your echaz zanayim? No, but there is a difference. So the world does exist. What's the proof the world exists? You nailed it. The pasuk says, "Bereishis bara lakim es hashamayim v'sa'aretz." That's what it says in Chassidus. How do we know there's a world? Maybe there won't be a world. Maybe there isn't a world because bereishis bara lakim. In fact, it's brought down on different. It's brought down that the difference between now and Mashiach comes is that things will be. I think we mentioned this once. That when Mashiach comes, things will be reversed. Now we have what's called oilamis bepshitus ve'elakus b'yischachos, which means the fact that there's a world is pashat. I don't have to sit and prove to you that this table exists, the chair exists, or that you exist. That's another pasha. Elakus, the fact that there's an Eibishter, that's b'yischachos. That's a chiddush already. That's something which we need to think about, and shaylas and answers. And when Mashiach comes, it's going to be the opposite way around. Elakus will be b'shittus, and Elam is b'yischachos. You'll have to. Is there a world? There's not a world. You look in the Torah, Bereishis bara Elokim. Oh, so there is a world. But the fact that there's an Eibishter will be more obvious than the fact that the world, the emeskite of the world. So yes, there is a world, and the Eibishter very much treasures this world. But does this world have any independent existence of its own?
No.
That's what we're getting at.
So the creation is the Surah Mamor's God's will, His energy, and that creates that.
No, not that. The creation is the projection of the Asara Mamaris. It's the Dvar Hashem. What this world is the Asar Mamaris. Just like really that picture on the wall is the projector.
So what's being created with the projector? What you see,
everything that we see. But everything we see doesn't have existence on its own. So be'emes, all there is really, and this is something which the Rambam talks about in the very first halachas of Rambam in Hilchos Seder Torah. That we say that Hashem Elikim emes. The only thing that's true is the Eibishter. Everything else is not emes. What does it mean not emes? The Rambam explains, not mamish, in the words of Chassidus. It says the Eibishter truly exists. Everything else doesn't really truly exist. We're only here because we're contingent. Which means we don't really exist. Again, like the picture that's being projected on the wall. Let's continue inside. 5 lines from the top of Perek Gimel. Ma shekol nivra v'nifal nira lanu liyeshu mamashos. 5 lines from the top of Perek Gimel.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Uma shekol nivra v'nifal nira lanu liyeshu mamashos.
Yeah.
This is the big elephant in the room. Dr. Rebbe is saying, you're telling me nothing exists except the Eibishter, but I feel, there's a world out there. Zeu machma she'einanu masigim v'royim be'eni basar es koyach Hashem v'ruach piv shebenivratz. Because we don't see. It's because we don't see the words of Hashem and the koyach of Hashem that is within this creation. By way of example, imagine if you see a picture on the wall, you didn't see the projector. Then what do you see? You see a picture. If you see the projector, then you realize the picture doesn't really exist over there. But what if you don't see the projector and you're unaware of the projector? You have no way of knowing about the projector, except that maybe you see it in a safe or somewhere. Then the picture looks real. So the reason why the world looks real to us, it looks like it exists, it feels like it exists. They say, feels like a duck looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, right? But it isn't a duck. No, so here we have it. It's not. It looks like it exists, it feels like it exists, it tastes like it exists. It doesn't. That's the problem. The problem is that we don't realize that which looks and feels and everything like a duck, there's a projector that's projecting the picture of the duck. Or the movie of the duck, so that it looks like a duck, right? It's acting like a duck, it's quacking like a duck, but it's not a duck.
That's the creation.
Yeah. And these are, by the way, these are classic words in Chassidus. In Chabad Chassidus, you're telling anyone, Ilu nitna reshus la'ayin liris, they'll know you're talking about Shaar Hayichud Vehaemunah Perek Gimel. But if the eye were given permission to see, well, the has again to grasp and to understand, the Sachayis v'ruchnis v'chol nivra shefeya boy, to see and to grasp the energy and the ruchnius which is pulsating and flowing within every creation, which emanates from Hashem's mouth. We would not at all sense the physicality of the creation. Instead, ki batal b'metzias mamish. We would sense how it's completely batal b'metzias. Legabi achayis v'aruchnius shavoy. It's completely batal to the ruchnius and the energy that's in it. Mi'achar, because shemibalade ruchnius, because if not for this ruchnius, hayayin v'efes mamish, it would be absolute nothingness. K'mei koydem sheish me'bereishis mamish. V'aruchnius hashefei Allah b'meitzepi Hashem v'ruach piv. The spiritual energy that's coming, that flows in it from Hashem's dibur, hu levadei hamitziei tamid me'ayin ve'efes liyesh. That is what's constantly forcing it out of a state of nothingness into being something. U'mahava oisei is creating it. Im kain, if so, efes beladei mamish. There's literally nothing other than Hashem, and the only reason why it appears to us that there is something other than Hashem is because the projector is invisible to our eye. We do not sense, and we do not see the Dvar Hashem. We do not see the Asar Mamar flowing in every single, but if we were able to see it, then we would not think that anything exists. We would openly, it would be very clear to us that everything is only the Dvar Hashem, and being granted existence at every moment from the words of Hashem. The story is told from reliable sources. There's plenty of different levels of stories. Some come from more legend, not that they're not true, but you're not sure, but this is a story that's told over by the Rebbe actually, that several days before the Alter Rebbe passed away, so the Alter Rebbe, he turned to his grandson, Rabbi Nachum Mendel, who later became the third Rebbe of Chabad, that's known as the Tzemach Tzedek, and he pointed at the roof and said to his grandson, Mendel, do you see the roof? His grandson thought that was a strange question to ask. Do you see the ceiling? And the Alter Rebbe continued and says, believe me, I don't see the ceiling right now. All I see is the Dvar Hashem that's creating it. That's what he told his grandson. A few days before he passed away, as he was mamish nearing the climax of his avodah here in this world, the Alter Rebbe reached that stage of what he says here in Tanya. If permission was given to eye to see, the Alter Rebbe Taka was able to look and see. And when we say that, does that mean he didn't see the ceiling? No, he saw the ceiling. But because he saw the Dvar Hashem, the ceiling is completely batal mimetzias. That's not something to focus on. That's the. But
not literally. He was saying it was his intellect that was telling him that. The reason why the ceiling's there is because of the Dvar.
That's like imagine.
He see it with his eyes, but his eyes are not.
Right.
It's limited.
Correct, but it's imagine you're a person whose entire life is sitting by a window and he's not very unaware of what's going on in the world, and he sees stones flying all the time, and then one day he walks out and he sees the people throwing the stones. How that changes his perspective of the stones. He still sees the stones, but suddenly he realizes these aren't flying stones. That's what happened. In other words, the Ilu Nitna Reshus La'ayin Liris over here, suddenly the Alter Rebbe was exposed to the projector, the one throwing the stones, the Eibush to the Dvar Hashem. And this really is the Avodah of the Adata Hayoim, Vashivei Sol Avavecha, with which we started, Vehaemunah. Ki Hashem Ulikim, Bashamayim Mal Baal Shem Tov Library. It's not only a fact, it's a mitzvah. The Adata Hayoim, Vashivei Sol Avavecha is a mitzvah. And this is something which requires regular hisbainos. It's not something...
You have to contemplate it.
Yeah. And this was the avodah of Chassidim. This was the avodah of Chassidim over the generations, and we talk about the Chassidim who would be misboinen they contemplate and meditate for long periods of time. What were they meditating? This, mamish this, the Eid Movade. You live it's like every single day you need to be deprogrammed anew, because every single day you wake up in the morning and you see the wall and you see the table and you see the food and you're like, oh, there's a world. And every single day you have to deprogram yourself and no, my eyes are fooling me. It's not what it seems. And that takes constant energy every single day. And because it's so unnatural, similar to what Alter Rebbe is saying here, just like existence is unnatural and therefore requires a constant force to keep it that way, because this is such an unnatural perspective, it takes constant energy to do that. So, for example, if a person decides, okay, I'm going to exercise one day and that's it, I'm good for the rest of my life. No, every day you have to exercise or everything goes back to the way it was, right? the same thing is here also. If you don't, every single day, it takes being misbein and contemplating, v'yadata hayoim, you should know. V'asher veis olavecha, you have to take it to heart. It's not something which you can just, hear about once and I'm all set. There's this mitzvah, v'yadata hayoim, v'asher veis olavecha. Know it and take it to heart. This is something which is a constant. The story is told about one of the legendary chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. His name was Rabbi Naftali Silberberg. So he was from the city of Kletsk, but also, actually I'm not even sure if he's from the city of Kletsk. He was called Rabbi Naftali Silberberg, I believe, primarily because he worked in timber, which is in Yiddish, a timber is a klutz.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a piece of wood is a klutz.
The klutz.
Yeah.
I used it differently.
So he was in the timber industry. And that happened once. He was in the middle of his working day, and he had to make his cheshbonos, make a tally his balance, make his balance sheet, what he has, what he doesn't have. And in the middle, he starts suddenly thinking about some chassidus, and he got lost in his thoughts. And then when he caught himself and he realized that he was in the middle and he was writing what the total was, when he got to the total, he wrote Einaid Movadeh. What is the total? What is the sahakel? What is the... So that when they asked him, Binyamin, you're middle of work, you want to have these meditation sessions in the middle of davening, middle of learning, you're middle of work. He says, I don't understand. In the middle of davening, it's fine to think about work, but middle of work, it's not fine to think about the Eibishter. But that was an avodah of chassidim. Avodah of chassidim to work on this. It's not something, again, it's something which requires constant reinforcement. And this idea has many applications, many practical, relevant applications. And I want to talk about two of them. Of late it has become, we usually connect it somehow to the Parsha of the week, but now I want to talk about last week's Parsha. Shabbos Parshas Bereshis. The Zohar says that all the 6 days of the week is Minei Misbarach and Kula Yomin, all our bracha we get from last Shabbos, so we still have also Epis HaShaychus to Shabbos Parshas Bereshis. That's why we get an Aliyah, the Shabbos before marriage, Shabbos before a birthday, because the brachas of the week come from the Shabbos beforehand. Now, this sefer, some of you might recognize, it's called the Kutei Sichos. Kutei Sichos is you could probably describe it as the Lubavitcher Rebbe's primary work. Yes, if you look at the walls here, you'll see many sfarim by the Rebbe, but probably the most official and primary work is the 39 volumes of the Kutei Sichos. These are selected talks of the Rebbe, which the Rebbe edited and prepared for publication, and they were published. So again, there are 39 volumes of the Kutei Sichos. This I have, the one I'm holding in front of me right now is Chelik Aleph, the first page of Chelik Aleph. So what is the very first Sicha in the Kutei Sichos? The very first Sicha. The very first Sicha is based on the words Bereshis Bara, yeah. And the Rebbe says that by the Nisi Chabad, by the Chabad Rebbes, there was a popular phrase that they would say on Shabbos Parshas Bereshis, that they would say, as we mishtelzech avek Shabbos Bereshis, azoi firtzech agans yar. That Shabbos Bereshis, the way a person establishes him or herself on Shabbos Bereshis, the path that you set yourself on, that impacts the entire year. The entire year follows suit. And the Rebbe asks, why is this so? What's so special about Shabbos Bereshis? Why is it more special than Shavuos? Why is it more special the Shabbos of Matan Torah, Yetzias Mitzrayim? Like, what is about Bereshis that's so foundational to the point that we say that we mishtaltzach avek Shabbos Bereshis, that dafka the way Shabbos Bereshis impacts the entire year? So the Rebbe explains, and I'm going to read inside and translate in English. The idea of Bereshis bara elikim es hashamayim v'sa'aretz, that Hashem created the whole world from absolute nothingness. So that compels us to say that the idea of Bria, the idea of creation, is something which is constant. Every moment, every minute. In other words, this, whatever newness happened, whatever novel thing came into being during the 6 days of creation, which beforehand there was absolute nothingness, and then there came about something that is. This is something which is incredibly novel, obviously. So this novelty happens every minute because there's always, constantly, there is new creation. This is what's explained at length in Tanya. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe in a footnote, in Shaar Vehaemunah, Perek Gimel, which is the Perek that we're learning. And this explains the words of the Pasuk, La'olam Hashem Dvar Chanitzav B'Shamayim, that the truth is that every single creation on its own is nothing, even now. And seine ganze Vernahmenkeit is not to leave them. The fact that it exists is only because Hashem is constantly creating the creation. So therefore, what is the true mitzias of every single thing that exists is Elokus, is Gatlachkeit, is godliness. With this we'll understand why Shabbos Bereshis is negated the entire year. Because remembering Bereshis Bara Elikim is the foundation of the Avodah of the entire year. And the Rebbe explains, when you're dealing with a Yid, and you're telling him that you're supposed to take even your material affairs and make them into a keli for a lakus, everything has to be a vessel for kedusha and holiness. But sometimes a person can think that because of the natural order of the world, it's difficult or even impossible. That this world resists holiness, this world resists kedusha. That even though that it's my job in this world to take all my everything that I do all day long and everything I'm involved with, and to make it holy and to infuse it with holiness, but because the world is the world and we know what the world is, so sometimes that makes it very difficult or even impossible. But when a person remembers that La'olam Hashem Dvar Chanitzav B'Shamayim, that in truth there is no world, and the fact that there is something that you see is only because Vayemer Elikim Yihi Oyer, and therefore is Vayihi Oyer. And the same thing is also with all the other 10 Ma'amaris, that, and we know that Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. Hashem looked into the Torah, the Asar Ma'amaris, where they recorded in the Torah. So, if you have that understanding and that approach, that everything that exists and everything that is in the world, what is it really? All it is the Asara Ma'amaris Sheba Torah. All we're seeing, as we discussed on Perek Aleph, everything you see, what is it? It's the Asara Ma'amaris written in the Torah and various permutations of the Asara Ma'amaris. So then you automatically know that it's impossible for the mitzias of the world to be ashter to mitzvahs, to in any way contradict mitzvahs. Because in the very same Torah it says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, on all the 613 mitzvahs. So when a person understands that the whole mitzvahs of the world is Torah, the Asar Ma'amaris Sheba Torah, and even when he goes in the street, and even when he's in the middle of his business, so he'll say a Maimer Azal, a Kapitel Tehillim, a Perek Mishnayis, a Perek Tanya, and with every good thing that the person does, so he weighs over the entire world l'kav schus. In other words, that a person's understanding and thinking in depth in the inner meaning of Bereshis Bara Elikim causes Taka, impacts the heaven and the earth and everything in it, and impacts the entire creation. So this is why Bereshis Bara Elikim is such an important foundation, and why Shabbos Bereshis impacts the entire year, because this understanding of Bereshis Bara Elikim really is the foundation of Avodah. Because any time that you have a difficulty in serving Hashem, you realize that difficulty doesn't exist. All that exists is Hashem. The moment that we stop ascribing reality to anything which can try to hinder us from serving Hashem, so then we're free. We're free to serve Hashem in every single way, which is why Bereshis Bara Elikim is so foundational in our service of Hashem. That's one point. Then the Rebbe continues and says a second point. The knowledge and the recognition that La'olam Hashem Dvar Chanitzav B'Shamayim impacts not only our Avodah Ruchnis. We said before that, when you know that really there's nothing in it Mulvadai, so that allows you to do your Avodah Ruchnis. But also, it also takes away all a person's worries from any Gashmiistic things. Because the fact that a person is worried if he's missing in the areas of Bani, Chai, or Mezayni, children, life, livelihood, that's because he forgets for a moment that everything comes from Hashem. As Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, in the Geras HaKodesh Siman Yud Aleph. But when you remember that constantly everything comes from Hashem, then you're not worried, because you know that from Hashem nothing comes bad, only goodness. And when a person, again, is able to, this is something which a person is able to fully appreciate, then also, even with physical eyes, we'll be able to see how everything is good. Also, this is the second idea, which is the implication of Hashem creating the world at every moment is what leads us to the automatic conclusion that there can never be anything which is bad. How is it that there could be a bad world if there's a good Hashem? Think about that for a second. If there's a good creator, how can there be a bad world? So what will most people answer you? They'll tell you, well, yeah, the creator is good, but sometimes the world spins out of control. But what if the world can't spin out of control because the world doesn't exist? And all that exists is Hashem forcing it into existence at every moment. So Hashem, who is the Tachlis HaTov, and from the Eibishter nothing bad comes out. Hashem, who is the ultimate in goodness, at every single moment is forcing the world into existence. Is it possible that anything could be bad? Again, if you have a view, there is Hashem and there's a world, then you could say Hashem is good and the world is bad. Somehow or other, a good Hashem created a bad world. However you resolve that philosophical issue, how is it possible for a good Hashem to create a world which somehow right now is bad? Okay, you work it out. But what if there is no world? What if it's Einid Muvadai?
So you're saying bad is good?
Or there is no bad. There's no such thing.
You have wars. People they want to kill.
So bad is also an illusion. Okay, now right now is not the time and place to have this discussion. We've discussed it in the past in Perich Chavav Tanya, which you can refresh on.
I'm just trying to say that bad that you perceive is also good.
Is actually a higher good, as we learned in Perich Chavav in Kutei Amar.
Whatever it is.
But the point is, whatever it is, the point is how it's a good Veisich. How it's good, maybe I don't know. Maybe I do know. Maybe I don't. That's not the point. The bottom line is, it has to be good. There can't be anything that's bad.
I'm saying the same thing.
And this is really Einid Muvadai. So the Rebbe is saying over here, it's the Yisoid for all our Avodah Ruchnis, and also for our Begashmias, to be relaxed and happy and non-anxious. In terms of our Avodah Ruchnis, the service of Hashem, the recognition of Bereshis Bara Lakim, and its corollary Einid Muvadai, that frees us to serve Hashem in all ways. Why? Because we realize we're not in a spell, we're never intimidated by the world, because we realize the world is not really anti-Torah. The world can't be anti-Torah. The world can't be antithetical to Torah, because the world is created by the Sar Mamaris Shebet Torah. And also, Pashat materially, it takes away the anxiety, it takes away all the suffering, because you realize there is no world. Einid Muvadai, it's all Eibishter, and the Eibishter is not good. And that's why, interesting, when we say in davening, we say, HaMachadish betuvi b'choyim tamid maser bereshis ka'amar lo yisayrim g'deilam kileilam chastei. Say that in davening. Now, the simple understanding of this is that we're trying to talk about how Hashem creates the world constantly. So we say the Machadish betuvi b'choyim tamid maser bereshis. The Eibishter in His goodness is constantly recreating the world. And what's the raya? Because the pasuk says lo oisei eirim g'deilam. Doesn't say lemisha also eirim g'deilam. The pasuk doesn't talk in the past tense. It doesn't say that Hashem, who created the great luminaries, He's constantly making them. But what's interesting is that if you look at these words, there are extra words here. We could say, HaMechadesh b'chol yim tamid ma'aser bereshis ka'amar lo yisayrim gedolim. Enough. But we add in HaMechadesh b'tuvay, which seems to be an extra word, ma'aser bereshis, and then ka'amar lo yisayrim gedolim ki le'elam chastei. And these things are interrelated. Because once we understand that the world is being recreated constantly, then it's bituvay. Then we understand that everything in the world comes from Hashem's midas hachesed, the midas hatoiv. Why? Because Hashem is the etzem hatoiv. He's the essence of good, v'teva hatoiv lahetiv. And therefore, when we say lo'isayrim gedolim ki lo'elam chastei, because His chesed is constantly extending lo'elam to this world. So these ideas over here of Einid Muvadai, these sound very abstract. And we're sitting here philosophizing, is there a world, isn't there a world? Is it all Hashem? And what's the level of bittul that the world has to Hashem, and we're going to keep on going, and we're going to get into deeper levels of bittul and Hashem. And sometimes you're like, okay, this is it's a lot. This is intellectual calisthenics. It's nice, you know. I come here and I give my brain some exercise, and I walk home and I feel very smart. But does it have what is the practical relevance to our life? But the truth is that if we manage not only to come to our class and we're like, oh, okay, I get it, I understand, that's a nice idea, that makes sense, I'll even maybe repeat it by my Shabbos table, but it doesn't really impact us. In other words, it doesn't really impact our perspective because we don't really internalize that idea. But if we're able to take these ideas and on a daily basis to be able to immerse our mind in this, to marinate in these ideas over here, which is really what this is. You can argue that this is the essence, not only of Shaar Vehaemunah, but the essence of Chassidus. Ein et Movadoi is what Chassidus is all about. And if we can, and we can, you know, toivel in this on a daily basis, this could be our mikvah, or at least in addition to the other mikvah, whatever it may be. It impacts everything. It impacts the way we view the world around us. It impacts our avodas Hashem, which is what the Rebbe is really saying. And that's really, it's interesting that that's the first sikha in the Likutei Sichos. Of the thousands and thousands of pages of sichos that there are, the 39 volumes, the very first sikha, which was chosen, was this sikha telling us, Bereishis bara Elikim, the world is never a stira to Hashem, can't be, because the world doesn't really exist, and really all that exists is what? Is Hashem and Torah and mitzvahs. That's all that really exists. Everything else is just a picture being projected on the wall, which we take so seriously because we're not seeing the projector. But if we saw the projector, we'd realize what kind of joke the picture is. That's the bottom line is. You know, imagine you're looking at it, oh, it's so excited, oh, it's not even there. It's not even there. That's it. It's all over there. And Chassidus, in a way, is the projector. When we learn Chassidus, what we're doing is more and more in our life, we're becoming more aware of the one who's the projector, or the one who's throwing the stones. Which is, if our world is one big thrown stone, we get to recognize the stone thrower, which is Hashem. Okay.
Someone once told me, who's steeped in see this, that whenever you learn to see this, it'll always help you somehow. That's what he said. That's what he told me.
There's a vart by Chassidim, which is there are three things that have an inevitable impact upon a person. And they are money, and alcohol, and Chassidus. If you have a lot of money, you go crazy. If you have a lot of alcohol, you become drunk. And if you learn a lot of Chassidus, you become batal. What if you see a person who has money and isn't a lot of money and isn't crazy? And what if you see a person who had alcohol and isn't drunk? And what if you see a person who learns Chassidus and isn't batal? So the answer is, it's not enough. See, if he has some more money, he'll go crazy. Some more mashka, he'll become drunk. Some more chassidus, he'll become batal. In other words, the impact is inevitable. And if you don't see it yet, you didn't have enough yet. But every single amount
has an impact.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Somehow you'll be geholfen.
It's not. You're making it sound almost like a segula, okay? Like, you know,
that's what someone said to Stover.
Right, but you're making it sound like you'll be geholfen, which is like, okay, or I can give you a little amulet and you put it in your pocket and go to sleep at night and you wake up everything. Chassidus is not a segula. It's not you learn it and you'll be geholfen. When you learn, every time you learn, your mind is changing, your perspective is changing. The only thing is, it takes a lot and it takes constant reinforcement, because otherwise your mind just reverts back. Because, well, this is the big challenge of being a yid and being a chassid. You're learning one thing, and then you walk out in the street and the world screams at you, everything that you just learned is a lie. It doesn't say it in those words. It doesn't say it in those words, but you sit here, well, it's silent. You learned that you sat for an hour and learned how the world doesn't exist, and you walk out, and what does the world scream at you? I do exist. I do exist. And that's why it takes so much. And so if you don't keep on learning it, keep on thinking about it, the resistance of the world just puts you right back where you were. It takes constant, You know, the famous vart that either was Rabbi Naftali Silberberg or maybe the Shpal Zayda, one of the two, he turned to Hashem and said, "You did a wonderful thing," sarcastically. He says, "Here, what you did is like this. You put all the pleasures of the world right in front of our eyes. And then you wrote about all the spiritual, loftier concepts on Gan Eden, you put it in the books that we have to learn. And then you wonder why it is that people go and they follow and they succumb to the physical pleasures." He says, "Hashem, why didn't you do it the other way around? Why didn't you put all the spiritual madrigas and energies in Gan Eden in front of our eyes? And give us some books that contain about the taivas, big ashmius, and see how many people do averos in that way." You said that the playing field isn't level, and that's the mitzias. The mitzias is we come in here, and we it's almost like an alternate universe that we enter when we learn chassidus, where suddenly everything that you see and experience outside, you come to chassidus and says that's you're missing the projector, you're missing the whole thing is. It's one big illusion. Not mamash an illusion like I explained earlier, but you're not seeing the emes of it. You're looking at it as if it's something which really exists on its own, and it doesn't. And that's really what Chassidus. This again, as I said when we started this year, Perek Gimel here. This is the essence of Vehaemunah. This is the essence of Chassidus. This realization, and if a person works their entire life on this is that's a chassid. That's a chassid. And then you live higher than the world. That's really the point of a chassid. A chassid is not just someone who lives within the world and also learns Torah and does mitzvahs. A chassid is someone who lifts themselves higher than the world. What do you mean lift themselves higher? That the world stops being teifas makim. The world doesn't. The whole world isn't. It's not important. Why? Because Bechlal barely exists, if anything. It's like you enter that world where you have your priorities straight. And that's a huge avodah because it goes against everything that's human nature and that's our natural predisposition, etc. Okay, but it's not a segula. It's a very clear cause and effect. It's like if I give you a piece of parchment, you stick it in your pocket, and you feel better. There is no cause and effect. At least you don't feel it. It's not a natural cause and effect. Some miracle happened. Chassidus is not a miracle. Chassidus actually uses a very, very natural process, which, as we've discussed in the past, over here it's a natural process which today has been embraced by psychology. The most popular form of therapy today, and I know we've mentioned this before, is cognitive behavioral therapy. What is cognitive behavioral therapy? A person comes in, they have some sort of emotional disorder, and there's so many of them. Whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's an eating disorder, whether it's OCD, whatever it may be, these are all emotional disorders. Instead of dealing with the emotional disorder, what they realize that every emotional disorder starts off in the brain. Change the way a person thinks, the person's patterns of thinking, by getting person used to thinking in different ways and reacting to certain events and phenomena in different ways, and automatically the healing comes automatic. It's not a miracle. It's an automatically natural process that when you change the way you think, it changes everything about you. And that's really what Chassidus is trying to do. Changing the way we think, and then changing the way we cognitively react to the world around us. Okay. Let's continue inside. We're holding by the words of Vehaemunah.
Exactly in the middle.
Right in the middle? Where is it?
The first word in the line is bilade. It's a drop below the middle.
I see it.
Vehaemunah is an example to illustrate this idea. The light of the sun, sunlight, which illuminates this world and gives light to all those who live on this world, all its inhabitants. Now this light, sunlight, obviously, sunlight is from the radiance, the glow of the sun, which extends all the way to this world. And the sunlight is visible to everyone. Meir ala aretz illuminates this world, and the entire earth. Now, v'hinei zeh pashut, he says, Avi yishair v'ziv hazeh, that sunlight, yeshnei gamkein, beguf v'chaymer kader hashemesh, that within the sun itself, there's sunlight also. You can't have sunlight extending out of the sun If there is no sunlight in the sun also. In the sun, in the heaven, in the sun itself, in the heaven, there's also sunlight. Because if it extends and illuminates so into such great distances, how much more so, how much more so it can illuminate in its place where it is. Rak, however, there in the sun itself, the sunlight itself is considered la'ayin ve'efes mamish, absolutely nothing. It's totally bottle to the actual sun, which is the source of the sunlight. Because the sunlight is only a projection that comes forth from the actual orb of the sun. So when you look up at the sun, which is not a smart thing to do, but if you were to look up at the sun, maybe if you were wearing very strong glasses, you wouldn't say, oh look, there's the sun, oh and look, there's sunlight. Because within the sun itself, the sunlight is completely batel b'metzias, because since it's in its makar, it doesn't, all you see there is the sun itself. Rak b'chalal ha'olam, only down here, tachas kol hashamayim, beneath the heavens, v'ala aretz, and on the earth. She'ein kan guf kader hashemesh b'metzias nira. Here we don't see the sun. The sun is not down here. Nira kan ha'ir v'aziv hazel yesh mamish le'in krel. Here we see sunlight. Yeah, you look out the morning and say, wow, look at that beautiful sunlight. You don't look at the sun and say, there's sunlight there. Because there it is in its makar. V'noifel of kan shem yesh. Over here in this world, because it's removed from its source, over here we can say there is something called sunlight. Be'emes. Ma'shenkin kashubi mekori, as opposed to when the sunlight is in its source, beguf hashemesh, ein noifel alav sham shem yesh klal. It's not anything. Rak sham over there, it's ein ve'efes, it's nothing. Ki be'emes hu sham la'ayin ve'efes mamish. Tak over there, it's taking nothing. She'ein meir sham rak mekayim l'vad. Over there, it's all about its source. Shu guf hashemesh hameir, which is the actual sun, which is the source of light. Ve'efes b'ladei, and there's nothing besides it. So the theory over here that Alter Rebbe is telling us is that when the sun projects its light, and Alter Rebbe is going to compare that to creation, because we are projections from Hashem. Although we have to make it very clear, there is a huge difference between sunlight and creation. In other words, there's a huge difference between the relationship between the sunlight and the sun, and the creations and the creator. And that is that the sunlight is an expression of the sun. It's not only a projection from the sun, it's actually an expression of the sun. We are not an expression of Hashem. The only comparison is in terms of the bittul. We're only trying to bring out that just like there's the bittul of the sunlight to the sun, because the sunlight is contingent upon the sun and it comes from the sun, that's how bittul we are to Hashem. But we're not. In other words, sunlight is a revelation of the sun. We are not a revelation of Hashem. We are something new that comes forth. Whereas sunlight is not something new that comes forth. It's just a revelation of the sun. But let's not get lost in that. The point is we're trying to bring out in terms of the bittul. As long as the sunlight is in the sun, it's nothing. The moment it comes out, it becomes something. And the Alter Rebbe is going to draw the analogy, which we will continue Mirz Hashem next week, that we are all sunlight in the sun. Not sunlight that is outside the sun, but because less asar panim minei, because Hashem is everywhere, so we are sunlight in our makar, in our source, and therefore we are mamish nothing. And this idea we will expand upon and continue Mirz Hashem next week. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.